Come read with us. We're continuing our reading, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. My autobiography. Home life. 1954 was the year Daddy was working at the housing project. It was one of the good times. Daddy was an intelligent, multi-talented man with numerous skills to make a good living. But because of his physical problems, he seldom held a job for more than a few weeks or a month at a time. His inconsistent work posed severe financial hardship on the family, and we usually existed in a dire state of poverty. When he was working, times were better, and he lavished us children with gifts of clothing and toys. He had a fierce pride when it came to his children. What he lacked in displayed affection toward us, he made up for in the peculiar way he liked to show us off to the world. He loved babies, but when we were old enough to have our own personalities, he usually ignored us. He purchased a red fire engine pedal car for the children to share. It was the hit of the neighborhood, and every child wanted a turn riding in it. Since there were at least half a dozen in our family alone that were old enough to ride it, the rides were short, few, and far between. I had a small black baby doll that was my favorite. She went with me everywhere. We were poor, but our dolls were often more destitute than we. They often remained naked, though we still cared for them. Sometimes we would wrap them in a small piece of fabric for a blanket to cover their nakedness. When I was about 4 years old, I must have become curious about the truth of anatomy versus dolls. I noticed the bottom of my black baby had no vagina, so I took an ink pen and proceeded to make one for her. Mama did not like that, and she scolded me for playing nasty. I just wanted to get it right. Must have been the artist in me. Silk neck scarves were popular that year, and our parents bought the girls dozens of them in every available color. They were fine, sheer, and wispy. We loved wearing them tied at our collars, as the style of the time made popular by TV cowboy sweethearts such as the Elevens were. Clothing was important, but so were household furnishings. Having glass dishes in our house was out of the question. In order to make sure that dishes were not being broken constantly, ours were made of aluminum, which was new and popular in the early 50s. You've probably seen some of those in antique stores. Well, we had them, and they set your teeth on edge, let me tell you. The pitcher, tumblers, and bowls were brightly colored in green, red, blue, gold, and purple. They were functional, but drinking out of those tumblers, like I said, could set your teeth on edge. The tumblers often found their way into the yard, where we used them for tools in making mud pies and bird nests in the fine, silty soil. They were often misplaced or dented, along with the spoons we borrowed from the kitchen. Bird nests were simple to make and reflected an early inclination towards sculpture on my part. The soil was so smooth and fine that it lent itself perfectly to the mud creations. We would simply scoop up a small mountain of the fine, loose dirt, pour a few drops of water from the aluminum tumbler onto the top of the mound. The water would immediately be absorbed into the dirt, leaving a perfectly concave-shaped nest that could be lifted out of the mound and played with. We would create tiny round eggs from the mud and place them inside the nest. We did not have a lot of toys, but we found numerous ways to entertain ourselves in the dirt. Mud was also useful when we got a bee sting. Since we were almost always barefoot, it was inevitable that we would occasionally step on a bee and get stung. Placing a small amount of mud on the place where the stinger, oh, this is my dog. He's over here coming to get it petted. Sorry about that. Got an interruption there. Okay, all right, go play. Go on. Okay, where were we? We would placing a small amount of mud on the place where the stinger was removed would draw the poison out fairly quickly. Living in new housing community had many advantages, but sometimes also disadvantages. Door-to-door salesmen were an inevitable consequence of living in a housing tract. The homes were new, closely spaced, and made easy picking for the traveling vendors. That was the year of many innovative ideas for the home. Melmac dinnerware, now they call it melamine, was new. One day, a salesman came around with a new dinnerware that he assured us was the answer to our broken dish problem. The salesman tried convincing my parents that this new Melmac was not only attractive but unbreakable as well. Daddy disliked salesmen, and he was a terrible skeptic besides. With his know-it-all attitude, he would seek to discredit and disprove the claims of anyone who came calling with a product to sell. He would often laugh in the face of the others as if to say, "You know nothing." It was rude and inconsiderate of the others' feelings, but Daddy didn't care who he belittled. He felt he was superior to most everyone. It was the misfortune of the dinnerware salesman to knock on our door during his rounds. He gave his spiel about the many benefits of this new product. To allay my father's skepticism, the salesman told him that even if dropped on concrete floors, the dishes would not break. Many a dish had met its demise upon the rock-hard surface of our floors. When he came to the part about the dishes being unbreakable, Daddy decided to put the man's product to the test. He took one of those, quote, unbreakable plates from the salesman and threw it onto the floor with a force unequal to anything as yet seen in our household. The dish shattered into a splintering spray. The unfortunate salesman gathered his things and left, angry and defeated. As he left, Daddy laughed with a new sense of triumph. However, as much as Daddy hated salesmen, he loved buying gadgets and new products. He had a difficult time resisting their salesmanship. It wasn't long before we too, were using the, quote, unbreakable dishes. We got our first television about that same time. Television was new and all were black and white. Color TV had not yet been invented. Like I said, Daddy liked gadgets and purchased the newest innovation to the TV. It was a magnetic plastic film that was colored in 3 layers. The top of the film was blue, the middle brownish red, and the bottom third was green. When placed over the television screen, it gave the programs the appearance of being in color. It was 1954 and I was 4 years old. I could hardly wait for the next year so I could start school. Being left at home with the little kids while watching the older children go off to school each day was difficult for me. That year, Joyce's leg was broken while she was sitting on the sidewalk playing jacks with one of her friends. An older neighborhood boy ran over her with his bicycle. I don't know why he thought that was an okay thing to do. She spent many weeks in a cast. It was the year that bowl haircuts were popular, and Mama cut our hair into the new style that mimicked that of Moe on the Three Stooges. No, go away. Go play. A picture from that year shows the children from our family with some of the neighborhood children, all with the same hairstyle. The neighbor children can barely be distinguished from the rest of us. We got to know our neighbors well and often shared meals or games. Our parents would sometimes join them in games of canasta or gin rummy. That is, before Mama became a Christian. After that, playing cards were never allowed in our house. It was just one of the many things we grew up hearing about but never having experienced. Many of our neighbors were Hispanic, and we learned to make the delicious ethnic foods from their homeland. Tamales, tacos, enchiladas, and Spanish rice soon became a normal part of our dinner fare. And that's the end of that chapter.